Hello, my name is Daniel, and this is my wife, Melissa, and our 15-month-old Arabella. We're the Shields family. We've been serving here in Nepal for the last 10 months with World Medical Mission. And I'm a family physician. I've been serving in the hospital here in Tonson for the last 5 months.
And I've been staying at home taking care of Arabella.
We've been preparing for this, or at least I have, for over 11 years to get here. So when it was time for us to leave, we were incredibly excited. And I remember being at the airport with our family, and you could tell our family was trying their hardest to hold the tears back as we were leaving. And there was one person behind the ticket counter at the airport, and she was a little confused because we were in this small airport in Sarasota, and we bring like tons of luggage, and everyone's looking at us like, that's a ton of luggage, that's gonna be expensive. But then she starts looking, she's like, oh, these baggages are already paid for. And she sees everyone kind of sad and hugging us, and then behind the counter, she realizes what we're doing. And she had a little cross sticker, and then all of a sudden she comes out of the counter and she just gives us a big hug, crying. She's like, thank you for what you're doing. And that was one of the first touching moments for me when I saw her do that. And I realized this is going to be a big sacrifice. This is going to be difficult.
We lived in Kathmandu for the first few months to make sure that we get a good language training before coming here. The benefit of that was that we were able to have a teacher in person, and Daniel and I were able to take it together, and Arabella was able to just be there and to play.
As time went on, we were like, oh, this is so rough. And then even guilt started settling in, because we're like, we're not doing anything. All we're doing is learning the language and the culture and all these things. It's like we were doing a lot, but for some reason we felt guilty because we weren't doing a lot of engaging the community, I suppose. The other hard part was being in a guest house for the first 3 to 4 months. We never really had a place of our own just to rest. And having Arabella, she always was sleeping in the room with us, and so we were either in public with everyone at all times, or we were in our room trying to be quiet so that Arabella could sleep. So it was a little confining, but overall, when we look back on that time, it was nice and sweet because we met so many people from all over the world. So it was hard, but I can see how God knit it together and able to build so many connections that we never would have had staying in a place on our own during that season. Slowly, as we began to learn the language and begin to connect, I think the first people we're really able to connect with were taxi drivers, just asking them, oh, hey, tell me about your family and your kids and all these things, and how much is this drive gonna cost anyway? And it was just encouraging to be able to connect in that way, and connecting with shopkeepers and things like that, and negotiating prices. We really started to gain motivation and started to get some happiness there.
So then we transitioned from our time in Kathmandu to here in Tonson, and so we were able to have an opportunity to be able to live in a Nepalese house in a little village for about 10 days. It was definitely stretching, but also really fun to be able to do. We were able to kind of see what Nepalis live like. We were able to just talk with different people, learn what they do throughout the day. During that time, it was harvesting time, so they were harvesting, it was rice, right? Yeah, rice. They were harvesting rice, and Daniel was able to shake out the sheaves to be able to get the kernels of rice. And it was just fun to be able to participate and to be able to learn new words that are associated with that as well.
At our village stay, one of the biggest memories I have is our first night there, and it's freezing because it's the cold months. We're bundled up in our sleeping bags. Arabella's in the other room, and we hear this army of rats on the roof. I don't know how many rats there were, but it sounded like an army, and it scared the mess out of us. And on the roof, it's not sealed. So these rats could have come in at any moment. We're just like terrified, like, are these rats gonna come in and get Arabella or something like that? And we were like, Lord, this is the first night. We have to be here 10 nights. We're not gonna make it. You've gotta do something about these rats. Otherwise, we're never gonna sleep and it's gonna be terrible. Thankfully, only an hour and a half later of the rats having a little, I don't know, army planning session up there, they finally stopped and were quiet. The same night, about 3 in the morning, we wake up and we've got to go to the bathroom really bad. So, which normally is not an issue, right? But here, so we're upstairs. The outhouse is outside, some ways away from the house. The family lives below us, and they're right next to the door, which is blocked with some wood and everything. It's like sealed so no one can get in. So we have to get up, put warm clothes on, get a headlamp, get outside our little room crawling over stuff, get down these rickety stairs, and at that point already disturbing the family. Then noisily open the door, creak, or get the wood out of the way, creak the door open, sneak outside, get to the outhouse. Then when we're in the outhouse, there's massive spiders in there. And Melissa's like, so me being the strong man that I am, got my little wooden stick and scared the giant spiders out of there. So as a gentleman, I could allow my wife to go to the bathroom. And then we have to reverse all of that to get back into our bedroom. So it was a lot of fun when we look back on it now, but it was a little rough.
I think one of the benefits that we had is that actually the owners of the house, their son was our language teacher, and so he came up and spent time with us, and he was able to just kind of have some dedicated time where we just sat and talked about different words that we were trying to learn, but also he walked through the community with us. So if we were trying to have a conversation and we were stumbling over words, he would help us to be able to talk, but also oh, what's the word for this? He would be able to educate us on that. So I really appreciated that he was there. And actually, while we were there, it was during a time of one of the festivals called Tihar. So we weren't participating, but we were able to kind of watch to see what was the cultural norms, what they did, what was kind of the rules, what were the taboos, that kind of thing. So I appreciated being able to be a part of that and to be able to see what was going on.
And there was one moment you really started to feel connected, especially during Tihar. During Tihar, there's a lot of dancing and things that people do, and our neighbor kept inviting us to go and be a part of, just what people are doing. And Melissa went with this one group of moms and women who are going to different houses and singing and dancing. And so they encouraged her, and Melissa just started dancing with them. And after she danced, one of the women started to just grab Melissa's hand as a sign of hey, I accept you, you're my sister. And to us, that was really special. Wow, they've accepted us now. And even though we don't really know the language, just doing a simple dance, them showing, hey, you're similar to us, and we want to love you and you to be a part of us. And so that was really special. So after our village stay, we finally got to come to Tansen. And it was so nice to be able to come to the place that we're gonna be for 2 years. Actually, our first favorite thing coming here was coming to the place that we're staying now, having a home we could call our own. It's amazing how big of a difference it made for us when we could call a place home and have a little place for Arabella to play, and have a separate space for us to sleep and for Arabella to sleep, just so we can get a good night's rest. So many little things that we take for granted.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Getting to be able to live in our own house, get things settled, kind of be able to get Arabella in a schedule, get us in a schedule. Just even the little thing of just being able to decorate a house is just kind of fun to do.
Before I started working, I was struggling with worth and what am I doing? All I'm doing is learning this language. I'm not doing anything. So when we came to Tansen and I finally got to start working in the hospital, it's I finally felt more at home. I felt in this groove because I'd been, studying medicine 11 years or parts of it. So I'm finally doing something that's not new. Yeah, it was a new setting. I didn't have as much resources, but at least it was something I was familiar with. And that brought a lot of comfort and peace to me. Welcome to Tonson Hospital. Right now we are in the general medical ward. This is the nursing station. And here we see the majority of patients, especially the patients that are very sick. Majority of what we see here is a lot of tuberculosis, a lot of alcoholic liver disease. We see snake bites and poisonings and COPD, heart failure, a little bit of everything. And so hopefully we can show you around and see kind of a little bit of what we do. Thanks. So it's a little different doing medicine here. We don't have all the same tests that we have in the States, but we make do with what we can do. We rely a lot on physical exam and ultrasound, but we do have many labs that help us here, many basic labs. So today you saw a little bit of our patients in our high dependency unit. High dependency, it's like a step down from an ICU or an intensive care unit. We don't have all the resources to have an intensive care unit, but we do our best. We have continuous monitoring, and we can intubate patients and ventilate them for life support, give them pressors. In the high dependency unit, the nurses can look at the patients a lot closer with checking vital signs and giving meds more quickly as they need. Today we saw a patient with HIV and tuberculosis having some issues with medications, his body not tolerating them very well. We're kind of a full ward today, so it's been a bit busy. And it's nice that we have a big team. So you saw others also seeing patients, and so it's definitely nice that we don't have to work alone. We have a lot of Nepali and expat doctors helping. Now we finished the general ward, and now we go to the surgical ward and pediatric ward where we have overflow patients that we see there, and we also have consults there. Welcome to our ER. Many years ago, we only had a small 2-patient room for the ER, but recently it's really grown. We have at least 10 beds at all time, but they're more like 15. Here we can really stabilize patients before they go to the ward. We can do pretty much any resuscitation here that we need to before they get back in. It's very different from in the US, but it works. We love it. We save lives here. So initially working in the hospital, like I said, it brought a lot of peace and joy, but with it also came a lot of frustration because I still didn't have a lot of practical knowledge of the language. A lot of what makes a good doctor is being able to truly listen to the patient. And here, I would listen to the patient, but have no idea what they're saying. I mean, I've learned your language, kind of, but I have no idea what you just said to me. And I would have to struggle to find someone to help translate for me and have doubts on whether or not I got the diagnosis right and all these things. So eventually, I settled with the Lord. I was like, okay, God, may I not get frustrated today. And if I didn't get frustrated that day, I found it a success. And really what started happening is people just started helping me. There was a lot of people I got to meet and get close with as they helped me in this transition phase of learning the doctor language, really. How do I listen to a patient and understand what they're saying when they're talking about physical ailments? And how do I get them to understand what's going on with their body while speaking in Nepali, of course.
Yeah, and I just admired you during that time. You really put effort into it because, I mean, the first 5 months were just mostly like conversational Nepali, and I think that was such a difficult time for you because you didn't know any of the medical terminology. So, but when you came home, you were like very dedicated and very like, I need to learn this medical terminology so that I can be able to connect with my patients. So I really appreciated that you spent the time to be able to do that as well.
Now I can go to work and be excited about it. And now I'm able to connect with patients on a, not as deep as if I was in English, but they know that I love them and they know that there's something different about me. And I've gotten to the point now where I can at least pray with patients at the end, which is what I used to do in the States. And it really lets them know that it's not just me, but the Holy Spirit in me that is loving them. and really giving that glory to the Lord. Because a lot of times it's not just about the medicine. Many times I can't help them medically. There's nothing I can do. And many times all they need is just God. They just need the peace of the Lord. And I believe with spending time with them and praying with them, I believe some of these patients are receiving that peace.
So shortly after Daniel was able to start work, it was a little difficult for me at first because I kind of felt like I was at home with Arabella all the time and I wasn't actively working in the hospital. My background is to work as a nurse, so Daniel was kind of like learning all these new things and being able to have these patient interactions and getting to meet new people, but mine was a little bit more difficult. I'm naturally a little bit more introverted, and so it's sometimes a little harder for me to get out and to meet new people, and to do that in another language is just a little bit more difficult. So I really, during that time, when I heard the Lord say, you need to get out of the house, like, it was a challenging step for me, but the Lord really blessed that time. I mean, I was able to kind of just be with the women, even though some of my language wasn't good, I was able to still communicate just even with Arabella. I mean, Arabella has been a huge asset as far as being able to connect with the community. I mean, as soon as people see her, they're just like, ah! And like, all the kids are just like, Bella, Bella, Bella. They can't say Arabella, so Bella is just the easiest thing for them to be able to say. And I'm just thankful to the Lord that He provided us with Arabella at such a time as this to be able to communicate with the community. So yeah, I think there's definitely some growth areas as far as communicating, like trying to learn what questions to ask to kind of engage in a conversation. Some of the questions I ask, it's just the responses I get, they're not trying to be sassy, but it sounds sassy to me, kind of like, so one of the questions I would ask would be like, so what did you do today? And the woman would be like, well, what haven't I done? I've washed the clothes, I've cooked, I've done all these things. And it's kind of like, okay, well, let's try another question. And but I think even those questions, I think that they've come to realize that I really want to get to know them as people. And I'm praying that through this, that they'd be able to see God's love for them and how much He cares for them and how much He wants to know them and for them to know Him. So yeah, and through the process of just learning about the community, learned that the older community, the women, like, they really didn't have a chance to have good education, and some of them were not able to write their names in Nepali. So I just started to be able to invite women every Friday to come out, the older women, to be able to learn how to write their name in Nepali. Just the fact of them being able to pick up a pen or a pencil is just difficult for them. So learning how to write their name was hard. So we've just kind of continued to do different things, like do exercises while sitting in the seat, being able to dance. And you know, some weeks were discouraging as nobody would show up, but other times I just feel like the Lord was just like, I want you to continue to be faithful to reach out to them. Even if they don't continue to reach out to you, just continue to be there for them and to love on them. So yeah, every Friday with the lady that helps us at the house, we call her Dee Dee. She has been able to be there with me to help with some communication things. So yeah, I love the fact of being able to come out of the house, walk down the street, and to be able to see the same lady at the shop I see every single day, and to be able to continue to build upon that relationship. That's something in America that is not as common and is a little bit more difficult, but I'm thankful for that.
Something the Lord has really laid on our hearts is that this first term is a season of learning. For us to learn not only the language and the culture, but what is He doing here? And what is He doing through the people that He's called here, through the Nepali Christians? So we tried to get involved in the local church as quickly as we could, and we're glad we did. And I'll tell you, it's really difficult because you will sit there for 2 hours, and at the beginning we didn't know what the songs meant. We didn't know anything really. We just sat there. Here's all these Nepali words. Okay, leave, and we'll see you next week. But it's been a blessing that slowly we've been learning this religious language. And so now we're starting to know the songs and be able to truly worship with the songs. And actually recently we just listened to our first sermon in Nepali that we understood pretty much 100% of it. And it brought so much joy to know that we could understand it. One thing they're doing is in each little area there is small groups. So in our little area we have a small group we're called Sangati, and every Tuesday night we meet and we pray for each other, we have some worship, and we go through a Bible study. So that's also been great for us, learning what the church is doing, what God's doing through them, and just us being there and learning from those experiences.
We just want to thank you guys so much for your prayers and your support that you have had for us over the past 10 months and even before that, and continuing to go forward. We really felt them and we've been encouraged by them. Thank you for all your little responses to emails. It's just been such an encouragement for us here in Tansen. Some things that you guys can be continuing to pray for us is just our continued language learning, for us to continue to be able to connect and grow within the community, and for us just to continue to be a part of what God is doing here within Nepali Church and just in Nepal in general.
And if you'd like to give, please give to the hospital directly to their benevolence fund, which helps support patients who can't afford care, don't have insurance or things like that.
You gonna finish?
What am I saying now?
We love you guys!
Yeah.